It's another week and another movie built around a pre-existing property that previously has nothing to do with cinema. And today's film isn't even about a game, but a racing simulator. Gran Turismo, the movie, also known as Gran Turismo based on a true story, really wants you to know that it's based on a true story, which to me sounds like a massive red flag and a narrative crutch. And when I first heard of its existence, I was sure it was going to be an absolute low-effort cash grab. I mean, Sony hasn't really had the best critical run in the cinemas lately with their video game crossovers.
Oh, crap!
But now I know, yeah, I was wrong. While it's easy to initially dismiss this as a gamer's wish fulfillment fantasy, it's really a celebration of the different manifestations of skill and aptitude, an incredibly well shot and produced car action sports flick, and most of all, it's a great film with an absolute ripper of a story. A little Ready Player One, a bit of Willy Wonka, and a big amount of Ford vs Ferrari vibes. A souped up underdog narrative. And best of all, this really happened. The story is of Jann Mardenborough, an English teenager born into an immigrant family who got so good at Gran Turismo on PlayStation that he was invited to participate in the Gran Turismo Academy, a boot camp in real life that trained GT sim racers to become real professional race car drivers. If this sounds like absolutely Tumblr levels of fanfic, I don't blame you. It's like if a bunch of marketing execs asked an LLM to spit out a video game movie with a concept that ordinarily would be yeeted faster than an R8.
Jesus Christ.
But what's insane is that all of this really happened.
This is Jann Mardenborough. He is a young British race car driver.
And yeah, okay, so what if it really did happen? My next thought was the GT-ness, that I was going to be enduring a marketing-heavy shit show waxing on about how great and amazing GT is, and how buying it would make all of my dreams come true. Thankfully, writers Jason Hall and Zach Baylin already predicted this cynicism, and tactfully rolled out Orlando Bloom, who plays the Nissan marketer responsible for the Academy's creation, based on a real guy, and he's the one who gives us the big spiel about the incredible accuracy and high level of simulation within Gran Turismo. So yeah, big tick, we get it, GT is really good. But to my surprise, after the brand-heavy beginning, that was kind of it for the hard selling. The only other deep reference to GT really does make sense in the context of the story. Jann meets Kazunori Yamauchi, the creator of Gran Turismo. Having spent decades trying to make the best racing sim in the world, Yamauchi's goal is achieved, seeing that Jann, a sim racer, now has a professional racing license, racing real cars. But then that's really the gist of it. For the rest of the film, apart from some ambient banners and logos, the marketing aspect of it fades away, and the concept of GT being a narrative instrument as a sim takes the wheel instead. And this is not a story about a game. This is about Jann's journey as he works to establish his place as a professional racer amongst the racing community. A caricatural racing elite that is absolutely repulsed by the idea of a commoner joining their ranks. By what? By being good at a video game? And honestly, this isn't about the accuracy of whether pro racers hate sim racers, because most pro racers love and use sims. Instead, it's a setup for one of gamers' favorite philosophical conundrums. Can a game or sim be so real that gamers can actually prove competitive to real-life professionals? How close can a simulator get to emulating reality? Can a gamer tell if their real-life car's brakes are glazed after thousands of racing hours, but only racing in a sim?
You've raced it, what, like 1,000 times? Now you just gotta do it in real life.
This is the meat of this movie. The good news is director Neil Blomkamp of District 9 and Elysium fame, although in a fresh genre, was able to find the heart beneath the sexy, shiny exterior. He understood the brief, understood the audiences, and once the movie picks up speed after a slow start, he pretty much nails the delivery all the way through.
Dude, this is real.
Quickly, we are introduced to David Harbour as Jack Salter, the driver turned mechanic so fed up with the racing aristocracy that he signs up to be the lead coach of GT Academy. And Harbour's grisly expression and personality is so perfectly cast as the voice of the haters of gamers everywhere that his comments will trigger everyone who has ever enjoyed owning a console.
You get extra points for that in the game? Jesus Christ.
His delivery is just so defeated and tiresome, yet accurate and on point that his quips, a lot of which are genuinely funny, are uncomfortably real and grounded that is almost impossible not to laugh. But it's a story and respect between the characters of Salter and Mardenborough that I wasn't expecting. A coach and athlete, two imperfect men from different backgrounds united by a common interest, embracing their vulnerabilities and doing what they can to make each other better people. It explores mentor-mentee dynamics, but also regrets and fear. And between this relationship and the exceptionally well-acted father-son dynamic with Jim and Honsu, this film has a lot of really unexpectedly wholesome slices of, dare I say, positive masculinity against an alpha high-stakes backdrop. It elevates the whole film to something else beyond just a typical hero's journey sports underdog movie. And it's just such a fun ride all the way through. There is a high level of confidence from Blomkamp, knowing exactly what style and tone of film he wants to make. It's funny, it can be ultra light and campy at times, with genuinely laugh-out-loud Kenny and Enya music placements, but then a series of dramatic incidents underline the very dangerous reality of high-speed racing, creating an enormous amount of tension and dread. There's been some questions about the narrative use of an incident that involved the death of a spectator, which actually happened at a different point in Jann's career. But Jann has already spoken about its use, insisting it had to be part of the movie because it was a very dark moment in his career and life, and to him, essential in a retelling of his own story. To me, this kind of sounds fair. The only real facepalm moment was a seemingly unnecessary romantic side story, which felt like it existed so they could put a kiss in the trailer for some sexual energy. But I would argue that this movie already had so much heart, it really wasn't necessary at all. But if these were my biggest gripes, I'll take them. Remember, I was anticipating Orlando Bloom turning to the camera multiple times throughout the film and saying, "This is why you should buy and play Gran Turismo," and then quoting a discount code. Which brings me to fan service. I mean, it was gonna happen, right? And I was prepared for serious gamer cringe. But great news. While it's there, it's tasteful and it never really gets in the way. Instead, it only enhances the storytelling. We get a couple of really tastefully done CG transitions from simulator to real race car, and it's good, and feels earned, linking his sim experiences with the real world at key moments within races. And then some joint FPV and mounted shots that were clearly inspired by the virtual camera you'd expect to see in the PlayStation GT. But again, these angles were so sick to see in real life, and it's just high quality cinematography. I wish there were more of them. In this case, the tasteful fan service actually made for a better movie, which is the best kind. But talking further about production, it is just so well done, with a huge emphasis on practical executions. This means favoring real cars on real raceways at real speed, instead of just speed racering the whole thing. Using similar compact cinema camera setups to Top Gun Maverick, coincidentally, cameras also made by Sony, the movie features the best real-life racing sequences I have ever seen, including a real Jann Mardenborough who drove in most of his own shots. To spell that out, the guy who the biopic is based on came in to do his own stunts, which is kind of unreal. So to me, anyone who disregards this film as a dumb, cringe gamer movie is missing the whole point of this film. This is not a loosey-goosey story written in to cash in on a game. This is a story about a guy who managed to achieve his typically unachievable dreams by using what he had available to him: a racing simulator. A simulator that was in fact so accurate he could compete and hold his own against the pros, which again, as insane as it sounds, actually happened. And you know what? Congrats to you, Sony. I would have made this movie too if the same events happened to one of my properties, and I also had $60 million. This is a new generation of sports movie that is as exhilarating as it is inspiring, and shows that incorporating gaming properties within films, when done with careful consideration and respect of source material, can be a legitimate crowd pleaser. And most of all, the story of Jann is just such a good one, and it deserves to be shared.